So I have your permission to record?
Yes, you do.
All right, and I am speaking to
Mark Leonard.
And Mr. Leonard, my name is Don Dyke-Newcomb, and we're conducting an interview with the interim or the acting chair of the Washoe County Republican Party. Is that correct?
I am Chairman Pro Tem.
Pro Tem, yes. Sorry. The proper term is you are Chairman Pro Tem. I apologize. So to reiterate, you are the Chairman Pro Tem of the Washoe County Republican Party.
At this time, yes. Yes.
And if I may ask, how did you acquire that title?
So what happened was that we, on yesterday, October 11th, at the Washoe County Republican Party Central Committee Executive Committee meeting, Chairman Michael Cadnassi tendered his resignation as chair, as did John Kerry as vice chair. We also learned during that time that Phyllis Westrup had resigned as secretary on the previous Wednesday, and following those resignations, Treasurer Darren McDonald was replaced by former Treasurer Sandra Linares.
Okay.
In addition, Communications Chair Valerie Michael resigned, as did Fundraising Chair J.P. Poete. Ray Lake, Jim Severs, Patrick Shea, and Chair Daniels also resigned from the Executive Committee. Momentous changes for sure, and that executive team did accomplish much good during the last number of years as they focused on fundraising and state assembly and senate races. So at the meeting and following those resignations, the remaining members of the executive committee elected me to act as chair pro tem for that meeting, and they also elected Carol Feinberg as secretary and Sandra Linares as treasurer. The vice chair position remained open.
Okay. So for the moment, you are the chief executive officer of the Washoe County Republican Party at this time.
Yes, I mean the formal title is chairperson. Yeah.
Okay. And with that being said, I wish to congratulate you on your chairman on being elected in that regard. And I also would like to ask the next question of this interview: who are you?
So, my wife and I moved to Reno from California in 2019, where we had been for 40 years, close to 40 years. I had a 20-plus year career in high tech, then owned several franchise businesses, and currently started back there and currently a book coach where I help business leaders write and publish books to expand their visibility and authority. When I moved to Reno, I found a thriving community of constitutional conservatives like myself. Harder to find in California, and soon was invited to join the Republican Party, where I actually served on the Washoe County Republican Party Communications Committee up until yesterday.
Okay. And with that being said, so is that your background in politics so far?
It is. I had not been politically active in California.
Okay. So you only became more active, or not more active, you only became active when you came to Nevada, or started with the Washoe County Republican Party.
That's correct.
Okay. So you're not really a neophyte, but you're not exactly experienced. You're kind of building, as we say.
I would consider myself very inexperienced, yes.
Okay. That helps clarify a few points of information. And so, that being said, you're now the acting chair. You've kind of given an explanation of what has happened in the last 24 hours. What is the situation of the Washoe County Republican Party as it stands?
Well, following the executive committee meeting yesterday, we had a special meeting of the Central Committee that was previously scheduled last night. And we had I think it ended up being 117 regular members show up, and we had 67 plus applicants for membership on the Central Committee also show up and were nominated to be on the Central Committee. That, by the way, I think is the highest single meeting total we've ever had in the history of the Central Committee. So there's a tremendous amount of the enthusiasm for our agenda is very high, given all the turmoil that's going on throughout the country, and especially here in Washoe County. Mm-hmm. So we are now in the process of reorganizing the office. We have plans to keep the office open our regular hours, 10 to 4 daily, and we'll continue to expand that. We're rapidly filling people in on the activities that are necessary for the running of the party, which is candidate recruitment and selection, volunteer activities. We'll be doing walking programs, market research, getting out the vote programs, and fundraising, of course.
And so, essentially, you're going to try to reestablish, or at least try to go forward with plans that, or just try to keep the operation going as is.
Not as is or as was. We felt that the previous leadership, while we supported their efforts to elect Republicans to the state and the state assembly and senate, they had expanded their focus for those positions outside the county of outside Washoe County. In fact, had become quite active in Clark County, and they were not at all focused on local races. So we're going to be changing in that regard. We're going to be focused on Washoe County issue and races, and leave while we greatly support the efforts that the previous leadership had made for electing Republicans at the state assembly and senate level, we think it's also important to focus on local issues and local races.
Okay. Now, I know this is maybe a little early in this process, but I do want to understand what your program or your agenda will be going forward, or is that still in process of being created?
Well, it's really, we are creating it, but it's really to identify and promote Freedom First candidates for all Washoe County elections: school board, county commission, state assembly and senate here in Washoe County, law enforcement, judicial seats, city councils. So that's probably number one. Also, we are very concerned about election transparency and integrity, given the results of the 2020 campaign, and we are going to be very focused on that, primarily at a local level. And we're also going to encourage citizens to take action in opposition to school board activities that they don't approve of. We are going to be focused on these tyrannical public health impositions that Governor Sisolak has imposed on us, and we're also going to oppose the enforcement of government efforts, frankly hostile to our constitutional and God-given liberties.
Okay. So I want to start with this one. What does a Freedom First candidate look like to you?
Constitutional conservative. I mean, we basically, and this is part of our charter, which is we believe in less government, personal freedom, and personal responsibility, and lower taxation. So that's probably as simple an answer to that question as you can get. I mean, it's just personal responsibility, personal freedom, and personal responsibility.
Okay. And then I guess the next question I had is election integrity. You raised that as a concern that you'll focus the party's organizational efforts at. What does that look like in Washoe County?
We believe it needs to be examined in light. We are not currently aware of huge significant discrepancies, but we're not ruling that out. However, we want to look at the impact that recent state legislation passed, making the pandemic changes that were implemented prior to 2020 permanent. And for instance, universal mailing out of ballots. We think that there is great danger in that. And early submission, and we just think that there are a lot of things that are problematic that we want to address. We don't have a fully fleshed out position yet, but we're going to be examining that.
Okay. And then you also mentioned school board activities, issues that have been raised by the Washoe County School Board. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes. Within our constituency, there's a great deal of frustration that the current school board, which is the largest employer in the county of Washoe with about $1 billion budget, is one of the bottom schools in the entire country. I mean, the state of Nevada itself, I think, it depends on which studies that you subscribe to, but we're ranked either 45th at best to 51st, even below Washington, D.C., according to some studies. And so for just one small example is that Washoe County School District has 17 different committees that are studying various issues. Not one of them is focused on academic performance.
Mm-hmm. Along that same line, are there other issues that you will focus the county party's efforts and resources on?
It's really to reach out to communities that have maybe sometimes in the past not been a high priority, not focus on the Republican Party. What we find, and those of us who are active, and I would say of the 67 people who showed up last night to apply for membership on the Central Committee are working class people. I mean, we're finding that tradespeople are very, very concerned about many of the trends that are taking place, and we want to just make sure that they get the message that the Republican Party is a terrific community for them to understand and learn and be among like-minded people who believe in hard work, believe in lower taxation, less dependence on government, and so we're going to reach out to to the working people here, and we think that by the way that includes is very inclusive. We don't buy into the critical race theory stuff that's unfortunately being promulgated so much, and we're finding just a really good reception, and we think that there's more potential to reach out to the people who currently think of themselves as nonpartisan or independents. We think that there's a lot of frustration there. I mean, one of the examples is school choice. We think that the lack of school choice and being forced to go to government schools chosen by the government has a disproportionately bad influence on minority and poor communities, where if people have the choice to send their children to schools that they choose, the results would be much, much better.
And then I guess also the other issue you raised, besides another public health. In reference to that, what areas will we be seeing more action from the Washoe County Republican Party in that area?
Well, we believe that people people should have the choice to make medical choices for their own body. Again, it's freedom of choice, and so we do not believe that people should be mandated to take a drug that may or may not be effective for them. Again, that needs to be a choice between a patient and a doctor, not mandated by the government. That's extremely dangerous.
Is that in reference to the vaccine, the COVID vaccine?
Yes.
Okay. So.
Or anything else, really. I mean, we don't believe the government should be telling people how to make their medical choices.
Will you, well, not usually you, but will the party be more forceful and more vocal at public health meetings or public health events?
Yes.
Okay. So, like vaccine drives or public health meetings or whenever the public health board is due to meet here in Washoe County, will that be more of an event for you guys?
It has been, and will continue to be, as long as these so-called mandates are being are in effect.
Okay. I want to swing back to the situation that created this whole situation, because I guess I'm trying to understand, and I'm trying to get I want our audience to understand what led up to yesterday. In regards to the long chain of events that started in September or so, or actually more like July, if that's correct.
Yeah, I think it's been an ongoing, simmering kind of discontent where there are many of us in the party who didn't feel that we were being listened to. We supported many of the initiatives that leadership had created and was implementing, including market research, focus on turning the state red, at a state assembly and senate level, and that's fine. We're happy with that. We're glad that those were initiatives that are being worked on. But we felt that there are these other issues that aren't being addressed, and the party wasn't reaching out to people addressing many concerns that so many of us are feeling these days. So we've been attempting to work with and talk with that leadership, and in fact, I mean, even leading up to the events on yesterday, Monday, October 11th, absolutely no one on the Central Committee has called for the resignation of anyone on the leadership team. And in fact, we had expressed a great deal of desire to work together, but the leadership team decided to take a different path, which frankly surprised us.
So it was truly a surprise when the resignations came out yesterday.
It was.
Okay. So I want to kind of go back chain events here. There was a bylaws change that occurred was it September or was it July that changed the meeting setting from quarterly to monthly?
So those are two separate issues. In July, we voted to change the meetings of the Central Committee from quarterly to monthly, because we felt that there's just so much happening out in the world today that we needed to be discussing, that we needed to be acting on, and we didn't feel that getting together only once every quarter was adequate to address, especially coming up on 2022. Mm-hmm. So we made a motion to take the meetings from quarterly to monthly, and that was vigorously opposed by the current leadership team. However, we passed it. We passed it at that time. Mm-hmm. And then at our first regularly scheduled meeting in September, we understood that the current legislature in their 2021 session ending May 31st had sunsetted the law governing the NRS governing major political parties, and that law governing them expired. So we had to come up with some as of January 1st, 2022. So that means that all major political party organizations on both the Democrat and Republican side are basically on their own for their own self-governance. And so it's really urgent that we come up with a new set of bylaws and we did. We came in, but we were very conservative in our approach to that, in that we took the existing set of NRS regulations that we've been operating under for, decades, and we basically modeled all the new set of bylaws on that. We didn't make any substantive changes. We made, some corrections and some reorganizations for the sake of clarity. And we were also out of compliance with the state bylaws to which we had to comply. And so we made those corrections as well. So overall, it was a very, very conservative set of new bylaws. And we proposed those. And again, at the meeting that we had on September the 28th, leadership vigorously opposed us adopting those new bylaws. And we subsequently found out that the current person people that they had working on the bylaws had drafted bylaws that substantially reduced the number of members on the Central Committee, and also we disagreed with that, and we disagreed with that reason. We think that we need to be more expansive and have a bigger tent even now. But at that meeting, we introduced the motion to adopt these bylaws, which had been sent out 2 weeks prior to the meeting, and after vigorous discussion, the bylaws were adopted.
At that meeting in September.
Correct.
And subsequently, something else happened at that same meeting, correct? Was that the meeting that was adjourned earlier, or was that the meeting that finished on time?
What happened is that prior to the agenda being completed, Chairman Cat Massey called for adjournment, and while he got a first and a second for that motion, he also received a lot of pushback on that, and the majority of people did not want the meeting to end, and at one point he just hammered his gavel down and declared the meeting adjourned and walked out. Many of us, however, stayed after that, realizing and understanding that the meeting hadn't been properly adjourned. And that's when we made the motion that passed to have a special meeting, which was held last night. And that was subsequently to finish, to complete the business of the agenda from September 28th.
And that's where you referenced where these new changes occurred.
What new changes?
The regards to the bylaw changes.
No, the bylaw changes had gotten adopted. So, so that the unfinished business included electing a representative. We have an open seat on our NRCC, the Nevada Republican Central Committee. We had an open seat, and because that meeting is this coming weekend, we didn't have time to complete that. So we wanted to certainly complete that business at this meeting last night.
Okay. And was that completed?
Yes, it was completed last night, and in fact, because of the resignation of Chairman Cadness, we had an additional seat open, so we were able to elect two people to represent us at the State Central Committee meeting, which is this weekend.
So, despite all this that's happened this last week here, or last 24 hours here in Washoe County, will Washoe County be sending representatives to the State Central Committee meeting on Saturday in Winnemucca?
Absolutely. I don't know exactly what the count is, but I believe that we have 50. It's either 58 or 59 seats, and we're certainly going to have half the people are going to be attending, and a number of people have also submitted proxies as well.
Okay. So there will be no disruption in continuity from that.
That's correct.
Okay. And will you be attending the meeting in Winnemucca?
Yes, I will.
Okay. So in place of the previous Chairman Cadness's seat, you'll be taking his place?
That's correct.
Because you are the chair of the Washoe County Republican Party?
Yes, in that role. It's a kind of inside baseball kind of thing, but he actually had his seat because he was elected to go to the Central Committee on his own, and then he was also was able to attend as chair of the Washoe County Republican Party.
So he had two seats essentially, or two. Yeah.
That's correct. And in fact, he would still be able to attend, but however, he resigned from the Central Committee when he submitted his resignation. So that seat went away. That's why his seat was opened up. Okay.
That I did not know, so that clarifies that situation clearer, as I would say. So subsequently, going back to the chain of events we've had in the last 24 hours, or at least the last couple of weeks, there was a meeting that was adjourned by the chairman abruptly, or subsequent that there was a meeting that was adjourned by the chairman that was re-adjourned or reconvened on what day again?
So I think the best way to describe it is that he declared the meeting adjourned, but it wasn't, and so we actually continued to meet, but we had run out of time in the meeting that we had, and we subsequently got together, but we didn't have time to finish all the business from the September 28th agenda. So we had a special meeting last night, October 11th, to complete those items.
Okay. And how many items were there offhand, if you know?
Well, it's 5 or 6, I think. It was the election of what was then 2 representatives, and it was the nomination of we had 67, I think, nominees, and we had an additional 11 provisional nominations, people who got their applications in, but it was too late to make sure that they were registered Republicans and that there was room in their precincts.
Okay. So that meeting took care of that business last night.
That is correct.
So where it stands now is that you're an interim leader, or you're the acting chair for the moment.
It really just for the moment. It's not even interim. I mean, that's why it's pro temp.
Okay.
So technically, I don't even know technically if I'm chair today. I was last night at the meeting. Mm-hmm. But we are going to have interim elections on the next meeting on the 26th, the regular monthly meeting on October 26th, and we'll elect interim positions and then we'll have permanent elections following that. So right now we're thinking late November, maybe sometime mid-December.
Okay.
And then those permanent positions would serve until April of 2023.
Okay. So they'll serve out the terms that the previous chair would have served.
That's correct.
For the time being.
Yep.
Okay. So I'm going to ask a question that I think a lot of the community might want to ask, because naturally this sudden change is naturally going to ask the question. There may be parallels to other events in other locations. Do you see that what's happened is potentially parallel to what's happened in Clark County, to the Nevada Dems, and et cetera, et cetera?
On the surface, it might appear to be, but I actually don't think so. For one thing, there's no threat of a lawsuit, at least that I'm aware of at this time.
Mm-hmm.
And the other is there has been despite the resignation of the leadership team, they have been very cooperative in the turnover process and making assets available to us that belong to the party, and without rancor and without anger. I think there is, frankly, a degree of sadness about it. But it hasn't been, and I'm extremely grateful that it hasn't become contentious.
The next question I want to ask, and I think this is also relevant to the same situation, or same parallel observation, how is the party able to operate financially at this time? Is it financially capable of getting through this time period of change?
We believe so. We don't have our hands around the money situation at this moment. We have adequate balances in the bank accounts that will fund us for quite a while, and we are confident in our ability to raise funds to continue the fundraising and continue the programs that we feel will be necessary going forward.
And when you mean confident of being able to fundraise, offhand, do you guys know if the rent's paid for this month and next?
Yes.
Okay. And subsequently, so at least for October, November, the lights will be on.
Yep.
Okay.
And beyond that, yeah.
Okay.
We have a very high degree of confidence that not only that, but we actually have a high degree of confidence we're going to be able to thrive. We've already been contacted by people who are being very supportive.
Okay. I guess I was going to ask you how much cash you have on hand, or how much you can report this time. Would that be a bit premature to ask at this time, or?
Yes.
Okay. So I will leave that question for a later time, because I know you're just kind of getting your hands around things, so I'll give you that. Subsequently, you've taken over. You're the new interim chair. We have a little background on how this happened. I guess I want to ask, going forward, what do you hope comes out of this time period, what do you hope comes out of this time period of your leadership?
I think this is, frankly, a very exciting time. I think we're going to end up being much more active, much more visible. I think our membership is going to grow significantly. I think our message of hope and restoration of primary American values will resonate with a lot of people as we're starting to see the impact of what poor decisions can really make. I mean, you're seeing oil now at $80 a barrel. I mean, some economist friends of mine are predicting $12 a gallon gasoline within 6 months due to the shortages. And that hurts. That especially hurts poor people. I mean, it especially hurts those at the lower end of the economic spectrum. We're seeing supply chain shortages throughout the country that are affecting the ability to get a dishwasher, to get a refrigerator, to just get, food prices are just growing very, very rapidly. And again, that hurts poor people much more than it does, people who are wealthy to begin with. And we think that is un-American.
Kind of speaking about bread and butter issues in regards to what the party's operations are in regards to issues like that, will we be seeing any grassroots political operations in the near term or anything like voter registration drives, canvassing, or things of that nature?
Yes, and in fact, there are many people who are on the Central Committee that there are a lot of other groups, as you no doubt know, that there are a lot of other groups around who are very active, and and you're seeing them active at many, many levels. They're attending school board meetings, they're attending county commissioner meetings, they're attending gaming commission meetings, they're attending health board meetings, they're attending homeless committee meetings. A lot of people are waking up and saying, I need to take action in this area that's important to me. And I think that will continue, and we'll certainly be supportive to the extent that we can.
Okay. And I guess I would like to close this up because I know you've got something to attend to, so I'll try not to keep you any longer. On this question on kind of an overall assessment of what the future looks like for you and your organization, and anything else I didn't ask you, you have the floor.
Well, what I saw last night was remarkable. I mean, there was just an overwhelming, and I won't say that the meeting went entirely smoothly. There were some periods where we had some confusion, and much of that is, I'll take the blame for that. But overall, there was just an overwhelming level of energy and enthusiasm, and I had a number of people come up to me and also other members in the new leadership position saying, wow, I feel like I'm back home. I feel like I'm back among like-minded people again. And it was overwhelmingly positive. And I think that will continue.
Okay. Well, Mark, I wish you well in your adventure as the new chair. And I also wish to say thank you for giving me an opportunity to talk to you about the situation at the Washoe County Republican Party effective yesterday and today. And I appreciative of the time you spent with me tonight. And again, I hope that this will be a conversation that will continue as while you're chair and going forward.
I appreciate that. I've known you for a while, and I have always appreciated your professionalism.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you letting me do this on such short notice, and also talking to me about what has happened, transpired, and giving me a insider perspective of what has happened. So I thank you for that. Oh, Mark, are you there?
Yeah.
Okay,
yep.
So I thought I lost you for a sec. I'm sorry.
Yep, I think we're good.
All right, cool. So I'm going to go ahead and thus end my interview with Chair Pro Tem Mark Leonard of the Washoe County Republican Party.
Terrific. Thank you.